Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today in this brief demo where we walk through how to eliminate data silos and speed time to value using data virtualization. My name is Melanie Brunache, and I'm a Cloud Pak for Data Solution Engineer at IBM. And in this brief demo, I'll be joined by my colleague Samantha Royale, where we'll walk through how we can virtualize data within Cloud Pak for Data and connect to a third-party business analytics tool to visualize that data. So we know that it's common for enterprises to have many sources of siloed data, as well as integrating that data with different third-party services. So let's say that we both work for a manufacturing company for our use case. So we have several different data systems that hold customer data, inventory data, supply data, and things like that. So in this demo, I'll be taking on the role of a data engineer who's responsible for creating our data connections to these different systems and virtualizing that data before I pass it along to Sam. She's a business analyst who needs to be able to refine and access the data from analytics tools that our company uses. So our goal here is to query data across the multiple different systems we have without having to copy and replicate the data like we might have to do with an ETL tool. So we want to simplify analytics and make them more up to date by utilizing the latest data at its source. And we'll accomplish this using Cloud Pak for Data's data virtualization tool. Data virtualization uses data federation technology to define access to these logically mapped remote data sources. So we use query technology to pull against these different sources and then access the data we need at once. And then finally, we use data virtualization on Cloud Pak for Data to shop for and manipulate the data. So let's take a look at creating our data connections, and then we'll move along to virtualizing that data. So we are now within Cloud Pak for Data on our home page, and this is IBM's data and AI platform. So as a data engineer, I'm going to start off by creating these connections and then virtualizing the data before I pass it along to Sam for analytics. So the first thing we can do is take a look at our data sources, and then we'll look at how we can connect to the data. So here are connections that we already have created. So we have DB2, Big SQL. All of these are the different types of connections that we can make within the platform. So these include IBM provided and third-party services. So to create these new connections, we need certain parameters. So for example, if we were creating a DB2 connection, then we'll need things like the name, connection type, our host name, port, and database. So after we have all this information, we're able to test our connection and we can create it. So we've created our connection already for this demo. So we really want to focus on data virtualization. So after we go to our virtualization page, we're able to see all of the data sources that we have virtualized. And this process is simply shopping for data, choosing the tables that we want to virtualize, and then adding them to our cart. And then from here, we can publish them to the catalog so that other users can have access to them. So for example, if we want to virtualize a Microsoft SQL Server database that we have connected to, and say we want to virtualize our inventory levels, we'll simply add this data to our cart. And then once we view our cart, we have the option to select a project, a data request, or just add it to all of our virtualized data. So once I add it to the project, then Sam will be able to access that data, and then she's able to use the connection within our third-party tool. So after we virtualize the data, it's within our project, and now it is ready to be used. So now I'm going to pass it off to Sam, where she'll walk through how we can get our connection details and then use the data within Power BI.
Thanks, Melanie. So now that we understand a little bit more of why data virtualization is so important, let's really talk about how we can operationalize the data that we get after we connect those tables virtually. So because Cloud Pak for Data is built on a Red Hat OpenShift base, this means that while we have plenty of connections to help bring our data into the platform, what a lot of people miss though is actually that we have just as many connections from which you can pull the data that you've refined into other third-party sources. So from here on out, we're going to be switching into the role of a business analyst. Most companies already have insight tools that their business analysts are using and are leveraging to understand their data. And a lot of them really don't want to retrain those business analysts if they would have to switch to a new tool just because it wasn't compatible with a certain platform like Cloud Pak for Data. So, taking that into account, we want to make sure that no matter what shop you're working with, if it's a Google shop, a Microsoft shop, we want to make sure that every single tool you're using is still very compatible with IBM Cloud Pak for Data. So that's what we want to show you now is how to, once you've refined and virtualized that data, how to take it out of Cloud Pak for Data and pull it into one of those third-party applications. So you'll see that we're back on this homepage of the platform. And now we're actually going to go right back into that data virtualization asset tab on the side. And once this loads up, we're not going to be working really with the data sources anymore, but instead we're going to go into connection details. Because we're working with a Windows shop who's working with Power BI in this instance, we're going to use all these connection configuration resources going forward to really help us get set up. So working with configuration resources, we're going to be working actually without SSL today. Most corporations and companies will be working with the secure socket layer because what that does is it encrypts the data as it sends it. Just for the sake of this demo, because that would take a very long time to encrypt massive amounts of data, we're going to be working without the SSL just so it goes by a little bit quicker. And things to take note of on this page as we switch over to Power BI is we're going to be using some of these host names, port numbers, the database name, user, and then there should be some, when we switch tabs, there'll be a password as well that we'll be using. You see that we're in the Windows portion of Power BI desktop now. So this is where your business analysts will be spending most of their time bringing the data in and running visualizations and really understanding the data that we created in Cloud Pak for Data. So to make these connections that we're talking about, let's go ahead and get some data and click more so we can go into some of the non-Microsoft options of connections. In this case, we're going to be using IBM DB2 database. Let's go ahead and connect to that and open it up. When we open it up, we'll see that we immediately are asked for the server that it's coming from and the database that it's coming from. So the server is simply, when we go back over into Cloud Pak for Data, the server is going to be the host name right here with a colon on the end of it and the port number that it's being pulled from. So I already have that copied, so let me go ahead and paste that there. And the database we're pulling from is going to be the big SQL database. So let's go ahead and also put that in here and connect up. So then this is where you'd go click OK, and then it'd prompt you for a password. I actually just did this to make sure it was working, of course, and it is. So this time it's not going to prompt us for a password. It's going to go straight to the data that we're looking for. When this data fills up, you'll see that there's a bunch of different users at the bottom here. If we drill down into some of those, we'll see some data sets that were created in the virtualization tables. And when we click on here, that's where we can get the preview and put the data in that we want to add visualizations to in Power BI. Let's close that out of that right now. So in addition to Power BI, we have a strong list of programs that are also compatible with Cloud Pak for Data. And for those that we don't yet have connections for, we actually have a team of experts whose job it is to work on making these systems compatible with each other and making any connection that you might need very possible and simple to use. So after showing you this simple yet powerful tool, we hope that you can see the value that it can bring to your organization when it's being utilized. We've shown not just the ways to display your data with third-party connections, but also how to query your data from multiple disparate sources, how to reduce data security risk, how to simplify analytics, and also now that we have access to real-time data, you're able to act on it in real time. With a single viewpoint for all your data, this is how we're going to bring the power to your data scientists and business analysts to be able to get the most out of what they're working with. This is done by delivering insights that are previously not known in speeds previously not possible. We're excited to bring this tool to your attention and help you move forward with implementation, but I want to remind you that working with IBM doesn't just mean you're working with the implementation team. It means that you now have the backing of all of us here, and we all definitely want you to succeed as much as you do.